These 4 tools belong in the Guinness Book of World Records for genius. We're talking 4 different tools that really upgrade your shop, your tools, and the way you work, including this tiny little thing and this magic bucket. Let's go. Before we get started, if you want to check out any of these tools I show today, I'll put a link in the description and the pinned comment to help you find them easier. Before I show you this genius tool and what it can do, plus the magic bucket, this could change how you woodwork in your shop, or at least upgrade your workbench, or CNC if you have one of those, but it's not necessary. This is the brand new Micro Jig Match Fit CNC work holding kit. But don't let CNC scare you away, because this is way more versatile than just using it on a CNC. While you can use it on a CNC, and I'll talk about that, but these are absolutely genius for the shop, no matter if you have a CNC or not. Now, Micro Jig did send this over for me to check out. Let me show you everything it can do. Seriously, I was impressed. Now, this kit provides 4 different ways to clamp your stock or whatever you're working on down to a table, whether that be your CNC table, or what I've done here is just use my jointing jig, and we're going to use this as a temporary clamping surface, because a lot of times you just have a sheet of plywood, or your worktop is just plywood, because you don't have a way to horizontally clamp things down. And if you just use a regular clamp to clamp things, then the clamp is actually in the way. So this is going to allow you to work on the surface of your project no matter what you're doing there, no matter if you're sanding, routing, that sort of thing. Now, to build this is extremely easy. I have step-by-step build plans on this on my website you can go check out. I'll drop a link in the description, but it's not necessary. I'm going to show you everything you need to know on how to build this. You're going to need a sheet of plywood or a scrap piece of plywood that's about 3 foot long, give or take. You're also going to need it to be about 10 inches wide, give or take. And then you're just going to cut dovetail grooves using that dovetail bit into this piece of plywood. I cut 1 groove across the plywood, 4 inches from each end, and then 7 inches between the ones in the middle there. Very easy. And then you'll route 2 parallel all the way down the length of this jig at about 2 inches from each side. That's it. That's all you got to do. Now you've got a clamping surface. You could literally clamp this down to your workbench, and then, like you see here, clamp any number of stock down using this system that I'm going to tell you about. And yes, this is a system. So if you're using this at the workbench, there's several ways you can clamp things down. One of my favorites in this kit is this cam lock. They call these ring clamps, and the way they work is like a cam action. You can see the lock and unlock symbols on there. There's only 3 pieces to this. You get what they call the track screw. It's basically got a dovetail fitting on there with a screw sticking out. Slide that right into your slot, and then from there you just put the big round piece on, the small round piece on, and then the actual wing nut there. And you can tighten this down. When you tighten this center part down, the outer part will still rotate, but again, it's a cam action, so it's not actually round. So when you twist it, it locks something into place if you have something to reference it off of. And that's where these little fences come into play. And you've got 2 of these. And there's 2 different directions you can use them depending on the thickness of your stock. I have this 1/2 inch piece of stock, and I need to use the thinner side so that my router can get past it. If I use the thicker side, it may interfere with that. If I had a 1 inch stock or thicker, then this wouldn't be a problem. But I am glad that they did put 2 different levels on there that you could use so that you could use different size stock. You also get 2 ramp clamps, they're called them. And these are really kind of unique and very genius level. Again, you use your track screw is what actually locks this down to the track or to your jig or to your CNC. Now, these ramp clamps work because as you tighten down, it actually pushes away from where you've got it locked into the track and into the stock. You can use these flat against your stock, or it does have a 90-degree notch in there, so you can use those to clamp corners down as well. You also get 4 U-pad clamps, and the way these work is if you need to clamp down vertical pressure on your stock, you can use these to do so. And they basically just have this block that has 2 levels on it. Depending on how much leverage you need on your stock, depending on how thick the stock is, you can rotate those around. And as you tighten down the nut, this will snug it down, pull it down toward the surface. This is good as if you're maybe doing some sign work or engraving work or something like that. This will help keep that locked in place, and you don't have to worry about the side-to-side movement. You also get 3 edge guides or fences, whichever way you want to look at it. They're calling them edge guides. Now, you can use these on the CNC to reference your X and Y axis so that you always have your 0 your starting point, always locked in. That way you can set the stock in place and it's always at 0. You know where your 0's at. That's very handy. But you can also use it on this jig to lock things in place, using it as a fence. Now these fences work with this track runner. You slide this track runner in there, then you have a bolt and washer that screws down from the top to lock it in place. Now with this jig, there's several things you can do with it at a standard workbench, outfeed table, whatever you're using. You can even clamp this down to a set of sawhorses and then you have extra clamping capacity. So if you're working in a small shop, this might be perfect for you. Now a few ways you could use this is you could clamp stock down to sand it so you're not trying to wrestle around with it while you're trying to get it sanded. You can use it while you're routing edges, especially on smaller stock, get that locked down, because a lot of times it's unsafe to try to route a small piece like that. So having it nice and clamped down is just extra security. It just gives you that extra option. And if you're a hand tool person, you can use this if you're using your hand planes and things like that. Micro jig has been blowing our minds for years because they come up with the micro jig gripper, like most everybody's favorite push block. They come up with this and they just keep coming out with really cool stuff, and I like it a lot. Next up is this little gem. Now we're going to use this clamping kit that we just put together, and I showed you how to use it to actually show you how this can be super handy in your shop. This is called an AccuBurr Junior. Now, if you're into woodworking, you probably should have some card scrapers laying around the shop because they're very inexpensive and they're very useful to have. We sell these on faithvalleytools.com. You can check these out. There's many other places to get them. I'll drop a link to ours. You can get these square versions or even a juice groove version to get the burn marks out of your juice grooves is what that's for. But for the square version, a lot of times you just need to kind of shave off the surface of your material. Maybe you're just trying to get it to the perfect thickness. Maybe you're trying to remove some burn marks, sanding marks, whatever you need to use this for. This is a good little option for you, and they're kind of hard to sharpen. It's one of the most difficult things I ever tried to do was sharpen one of these until I got this. First thing you need to do when you get a card scraper is put a burr on the end of it. And all that's doing is basically kind of turning a hook or a J shape on the edge of that card scraper. Because when you first get it, it's just a flat piece of metal. And you can kind of try to scrape on a piece of wood all day. It's just gonna kind of make a little bit of sawdust. But what you're wanting to do is shave the wood. And so when you put that little burr on there, then it's gonna be able to do that. But to get that little burr on there can be difficult in some cases. But using this is extremely simple. Now I'm just gonna use a couple of hand screw clamps and clamp those down to my jig, and I'm just gonna use this match foot clamp to clamp it all down. And then you're gonna see how easy this is. Now there's AccuBurr versions out there without these little handles, but I'm telling you right now, if you buy one, make sure you get the one with the handles. Makes your life a lot easier. Doesn't seem like it would, but it makes a huge difference. There's actually 3 grooves in here depending on the hook that you're looking for. Make sure you've got it clamped securely so it doesn't move on you. Push away from you about 5 times, pull towards you once or twice. That's it. It's done. Then you should be able to feel a little bit of a burr on your card scraper or your cabinet scraper, depending on what you call them. It shouldn't be a very large hook. You're looking for a kind of a minor filling hook. Once you get that, take this card scraper and just start shaving away at the wood. Now, depending on the roughness of the wood will probably depend on how much shavings you're getting or the angle that you're holding it. There's a whole bunch to it. Now I was able to get some pretty wispy curls coming off the walnut, and then I put this in there. I can't remember the species of wood this is, but it had a little bit of a rough finish as you see, a little burn marks, things like that. This card scraper cleans it right up, and it's just a super smooth, you can even see a little bit of a sheen on there when we're done. These things are absolutely handy, and if you have card scrapers or you're thinking about getting some for the shop, you must get one of these. AccuBurrs, it's gonna make your life extremely easy. They're very easy. And it's very easy to touch these up using this AccuBurr once you've got the burr on it. Now, one thing I found to be able to clamp things like these card scrapers down, if you don't have a traditional vise, I don't, are these hand screw clamps. They're very inexpensive and they work extremely well for just stuff just like this. You can even use them to stand plywood on edge and all kinds of stuff. They're extremely handy to have, and that's why I'm using them here. This bigger one actually works a little bit better than the smaller one. The smaller one, there wasn't enough meat being clamped, so you might see a little flexion on the card scraper. This works a lot better, and it gives you a little bit more to clamp to on the front side, especially if you're using the dovetail clamp to clamp it to your jig. Before we get to the magic bucket, that's magic sawdust. Before we get to the magic bucket, you gotta check this out. I had no idea this existed, and it could be just what you've been looking for to upgrade your table saw. This is the Rockler small part sled. Out of the box, extremely easy to set up. You literally pull it out of the box there. You're gonna put a miter bar on there. This is an aluminum miter bar, should fit any 3/4 inch size miter slot. And there's adjustment screws, little nylon screws in there that you can adjust any slop that might be there to fit your miter slot. Now this will also fit on job site saws, not just a cabinet saw. As you see here, sitting on this DeWalt 8 1/4 saw, it actually fits on these perfect. Perfect. So if you're cutting a lot of small parts, especially on these small saws, this might be a must-have. Now the first thing you're going to do once you get the miter bar bolted on there, you want to make sure you put the blade guard on. The blade guard sticks off the back and that prevents you from accidentally cutting your hand with that blade. This is a must. You must put this on there. It's a rule. Outlaw rule number 304. You also want to make sure that your blade isn't too high because, especially on saw stops, you don't want to hit that aluminum because if your hand is touching the aluminum and the blade touches the aluminum, yeah, you triggered the saw stop. Also, that's what's holding the two parts together once you make the cut. But if you ensure that the blade's not too high, you're going to make that first pass. You're cutting a 0 clearance into your sled. From there, there's a piece of MDF that comes with it that slides into a groove. You're going to put that in there, put 2 screws in it because from the bottom, that's going to hold that in place. Then you're going to make another cut. You could probably get away with putting the MDF in there and making 1 cut instead of 2, but they say 2, so I did. Now there is enough of this MDF left, so if you booger this up in some way or you change blades and you need a thicker blade or a thinner blade and you want a different 0 clearance, then there's enough there to reset it. Once that's done, there's a piece of composite material here. It says Rockler on it. You're going to push that up against the blade and screw in 2 screws, and that gives you the 0 clearance. That 0 clearance is going to help prevent tear out. From there, I run it through one more time just to kind of shave off anything that might be touching on that composite. It also comes with this miter stop. It's just a miter bar that expands when you screw it down. Prevents you from pushing this sled too far so that you don't expose the blade. That's also a rule. We'll call that rule 303. You also get a composite T-track clamp. And the reason I keep calling this stuff composites because none of it's aluminum except the T-tracks on there. So you should not cut into the T-tracks. This other composite material is just plastic. So even if you cut into this clamp, it's not going to hurt anything other than the clamp. But there is a clamp here for very, very small pieces. So if I'm cutting little pieces off and I can actually hold it down on the left, you can still use the clamp. But if you're comfortable holding it down, you can chop off small pieces like this. But once they get down to very, very small, you do not want your finger very close to the blade. Even this blade guard has a lip to kind of prevent your finger from getting up in there. I think this is genius because they kind of thought of everything here. The clamp, the 0 clearance, the composite material, the blade guard, and it fits on basically any table saw with a standard 3/4 inch slot. This is one of those things that it's just great to have because what's going to happen is, and I have tried it, cutting very small pieces at the miter saw is very dangerous. I've actually broke this thumb. It still hurts. To this day, I can literally mash it right now and it hurts. I broke it 3 or 4 years ago because I was trying to cut a very small piece like a dummy at a miter saw. I knew it didn't feel right in the gut, but I still made the cut and it kicked back and it broke the thumb. It's not a place to make small parts. If you don't have a small handsaw or something that you can cut very small parts with, this is what you need, and it's better to have it and not need it, and need it and not have it. Before we get to this magic bucket, I don't want you to ever miss a tool deal. That's why I started a daily tool deals email that I send out every single morning with the best tool deals on the internet at that day. So if you want to sign up, first link in the description and the pinned comment. I'm sure nobody else's extension cord looks like this, or even worse, this. But this is a magic bucket that's going to prevent that. The instant I saw this, I thought, genius. I wish I'd have thought of it because, again, my cords always stay wadded up and it's a pain in the rear, especially if you're traveling with these. This actually even has a place where you could bolt this down, like a bed of a truck or toolbox or anything like that. Now, how does this work? It has a handle with a spinning knob. Feed your cord to where you're going to plug it up. So the male side up through there. On the top, it has these little tabs that keep the cord from popping out. So you got that part up there. And then from there, magic. So depending on the gauge of cord you got is how much it'll hold as seen here in this graph, but it can hold up to 100 feet of cord. This magic little bucket is also made in the USA. I think it's just genius because they really thought of everything. Oh, and when you fold down the handle, kind of locks in that top cord. So now you can throw this in the truck, on the tool shelf, in the corner, and you know that your extension cord is never in a big wadded mess anymore. And when you get ready for it to use, we can literally just unfurl it, roll it back up. Magic. If you like this video, you'll love those incredible tools right there. You got to click that box. Clicking the box gets you the big old virtual fist bump. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. So you have no way to vertically